The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gohmert, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director. I'm not going to comment about your being last time here. I did that a few years ago and didn't turn out right. But anyway, I want to follow up on what my friend Mr. Johnson was talking about, the overclassification issue, because it does seem to be a problem and certainly an issue. There's an article today entitled, "Obama's Snooping Excludes Mosque Missed Boston Bombers." I wasn't aware of the, and I went to the FBI website, I wasn't aware of the Sensitive Operations Review Committee, so I wanted to find out what it was. Well, apparently, if something involves things like news media, religious or domestic political organization, things like that, then it has to go before the Sensitive Operations Review Committee in order to be approved. And here's the information on the data about if it's a political organization like a Tea Party or religious organization like evangelical Christians, which the Department of Homeland Security is so afraid of, or mosque, apparently it has to get approval here. And we already knew, and we have gone through with, and it seemed ridiculous to me and Michelle Bachmann and Lynn Westmoreland that the material we were reviewing that was purged by subject matter experts was classified. It would seem that if you're trying to make the Islamists feel better about training materials, you'd want them to see what they were removed. And I'm just curious, why are the subject matter experts that the FBI had go through all their training material and purge anything that might be offensive to an Islamist, why was that needed to be classified? I would think they'd be heroes in the Islamic world for getting that stuff out. Why was that classified?
Well, we went through a thorough review. I think you've been fully briefed on it. In those materials are examples of cases.
I need you to, I have such a short time. I need you to answer questions. And my question is, why were the subject matter experts' identity classified?
Because the process in whole had within its parameters all information that we have in the Bureau. And if I'm not mistaken, we gave you the names of the individuals.
In a classified setting, and so I'd get prosecuted if I revealed them. And I don't know why you can't make those public so that people would know. But obviously, you feel...
I will look at that.
Well, and also I want to go back to Boston. You said things like, and I jotted these down, what you said, the FBI did an excellent job, did a thorough job, don't know what else we could have done. And according to the Russians, there's a great deal more that could have been done. And when we find out about this this Sensitive Operations Review Committee, and as this article points out, if it's true, it says that we don't know who the chairman and members are of this Sensitive Operations Review Committee, who the staff, that's kept secret. The FBI never canvassed Boston mosques until 4 days after the April 15th attacks. If the Russians tell you that someone has been radicalized and you go check and see the mosques that they went to, then you get the articles of incorporation, as I have, for the group that created the Boston Mosque where these Tsarnaevs attended, and you find out the name Alamoudi, which you'll remember because while you were FBI director, this man who was so helpful to the Clinton administration with so many big things, he gets arrested at Dulles Airport by the FBI, and he's now doing over 20 years for supporting terrorism. This is the guy that started the mosque where your Tsarnaevs were attending, and you didn't even bother to go check about the mosque. And then when you have the pictures, why did no one go to the mosque and say, who are these guys? They may attend here. Why was that not done since such a thorough job was done?
Your facts are not altogether well.
All right, point out specifically.
May I finish my
point out specifically. Sir, if you're going to call me a liar, you need to point out specifically where any facts are wrong.
We went to the mosque prior to Boston.
Prior to Boston?
Prior to Boston happening, we were in that mosque talking to the imam several months beforehand as part of our outreach efforts.
Were you aware that those mosques were started by Al-Moody?
I've answered the question, sir.
You didn't answer the question. Were you aware they were started by Al-Moody? You were not. Okay. Thank you.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Puerto Rico, Mr. Pierluisi, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Director Mueller. I want to join my colleagues in thanking you for your service to our nation. You will leave a lasting legacy and large shoes to fill. As you have recognized, the FBI's role since 9/11 has evolved and expanded. Prior to the attack, the agency's primary responsibility was to fight domestic crime, including violent crime. Now, the Bureau also stands at the forefront of the government's efforts to prevent and respond to terrorism. And as the tragic events in Boston illustrate, the stakes could not be higher. Conducting both law enforcement and counterterrorism operations is a large and complex portfolio. And I know you're constantly reviewing the allocation of personnel and resources to ensure that both missions receive the attention they deserve. The example of Puerto Rico, though, a U.S. territory home to 3.7 million American citizens, underscores why it is important for the FBI, notwithstanding its transformation in the wake of 9/11, to continue to place great emphasis on its traditional role as a crime-fighting agency. As Chairman Michael McCall noted at a hearing last year in the Homeland Security Committee, the people of Puerto Rico are under siege. Like all American citizens, my constituents are targets for Al-Qaeda and its affiliated organizations. They, too, worry about terrorism when they board a plane, visit a tourist site with their children, or travel abroad. Indeed, in 1972, 16 American citizens from Puerto Rico were killed, and many more were wounded at an airport in Israel, the victims of one of the first incidents of international terrorism. But the fact is, my constituents are dying violent deaths every day, and they're not being killed in terrorist attacks. Rather, they're dying in huge numbers because of the toxic mix of drugs, guns, local gangs, and transnational criminal organizations. I know you're familiar with the statistics, but they bear repetition. In the 10-year period between 2003 and 2012, there were 8,600 homicide victims in Puerto Rico. The year 2011 was the most violent in the territory's history, with 1,164 murders. That is the equivalent of over 3 homicides a day, every day. It is about the same number of homicide deaths as Texas, which has a population that is 7 times that of Puerto Rico. Although the number of murders in Puerto Rico decreased in 2012, the island's per capita murder rate was still about 3 times higher than any state and about 6 times higher than the U.S. national average. As you know, I have urged the federal government to surge resources to Puerto Rico to alleviate this crisis. Earlier this year, following a visit by Secretary Napolitano to Puerto Rico, DHS decided to substantially increase its presence on the island. Next week, I am meeting with a senior advisor to the Secretary to receive an update on the steps that DHS component agencies are taking and the results that we can expect to see. Yesterday, the Appropriations Committee approved the Defense Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2014, and that bill directs the Secretary of Defense to provide a report on the counter-drug activities that DOD is undertaking or intends to undertake to support law enforcement operations in and around Puerto Rico. In March, I wrote a detailed letter to Attorney General Holder, copying you, reiterating my request that DOJ search resources to Puerto Rico. It is clear that the FBI, along the DEA and ATF, needs to do more, much more, to reduce the level of violence in Puerto Rico and to reassure my constituents that their national government cares about them and is working every day to protect them and their families. Director Mueller, can you please tell me what concrete steps the FBI is taking or will take to reduce the exceptionally high level of violence in Puerto Rico? The threat has evolved in terms of both its nature and its severity, and it is critical that the FBI's response evolve as well. The time for business as usual is over, Director.
Well, as we have discussed previously, Congressman, I am tremendously sympathetic to what is happening in Puerto Rico as we go along. We have made advances. We've added hybrid squads to cover any kind of crimes. We've got 4 violent gang safe street task forces. It's more than, I think, any office in the country. We have an allocation of 313 full-time agents. They are fully staffed. We're about 5 down. But I can tell you, under this term of sequestration, the possibility of allocating additional resources to Puerto Rico is very, very difficult. I, having been a homicide prosecutor, I think have some understanding of the devastation to communities that are beset by violent crime. I wish we could do more. I wish we had the resources to surge. I know we're working closely with ATF, DEA, and ourselves to combine our resources along with the Puerto Rican National Police, and we're having some success. All I can tell you is that I wish I could do more at this point, but given the budget constraints, it'd be very difficult.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The chair.